This is from Jonathan Alter from the Daily Beast. The United States needs corporate loyalty oaths. I'm going to read this to you, but I read this and I thought it was like a parody. I thought it had to be Jon Stewart. No one could seriously be considering this, but it's serious. On top of all the wars and the global messiness, 2014 is going to be remembered for the plague of corporate inversion, which the news media should start routinely calling corporate desertion. So, in other words, control the language and win. Corporate inversion. What it is companies are saying, I can't make any money here in the United States, and so you're going to bleed me dry by taking 40% of my income, 40%, and you're going to take it as taxes. Well, I can't afford that. I'll go someplace else. We have now the highest corporate taxes of any place on the planet in the West. So, I mean, you can go find lower taxes, I suppose, but then you're working with the thugs in Russia. But, you know, that's what is it, 16% income tax in Russia? Everywhere else is getting it. Everyone else knows it.
I think it just went down to 13 recently in Russia, the income tax.
So far, 47 American-based companies have renounced U.S. citizenship and bought foreign subsidiaries in order to dodge American taxes. Now, this should say something. If 47 companies have now left and renounced their citizenship, that should tell you something. We're doing something wrong. People have always come and wanted to set their businesses up in America. If American companies are saying, I can't do business here, we're doing something wrong. We also all believe that the Berlin Wall is wrong. Do we not? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. What is that? We don't want to have a Berlin Wall on our southern border. That's what everybody says. We can't build walls to keep people out. But they are building walls now, figurative walls, to keep American citizens in. That's what the Berlin Wall was. Not to stop the West Germans from going in, but from the East Germans from leaving. Whenever you start to build any wall, whether it is a literal or figurative wall, you've got a problem in your country. We have people that are dying to come in here, right? We also now have people trying to get out. That's a problem. This past month goes on to all of these different unpatriotic firms like Walgreens. That's a quote. Unpatriotic firms like Walgreens or Chiquita. The bill, sponsored by Carl Levin in the Senate and his brother, Representative Sander Levin of the House, recently won the backing of President Obama, who made a good speech in Los Angeles, blasting these companies as corporate deserters. Name calling. Polarization, isolation. It's Saul Alinsky. You polarize them, you isolate them, you humiliate them, you mock them, you destroy them if you have to, and scare the rest of them into line. So he's now giving a good speech about un-American corporate deserters. Of course, the president's support means that all Republicans must now oppose it. I have no opposition to any of this because of the President of the United States. None. My problem here mainly is with Jonathan Alter. This is insanity, what he's going to propose. So the bill is going nowhere. When angry constituents ask why, legislators answer that ending corporate desertion would be subsumed under comprehensive tax reform. But that's a mirage. Waiting for tax reform is like waiting for Godot, and no one shows up. Most members of Congress favor a low corporate tax to make American business more competitive abroad. And they're right. A 35% tax rate is too high. But their wealthy campaign contributors trying to have both cake and candy reject closing the loopholes necessary to keep big corporate tax from wrecking the Treasury. Wrecking the Treasury? The Federal Reserve has already wrecked our Treasury. Even if comprehensive tax reform miraculously passes, it wouldn't reduce the corporate tax rate to stop the desertions. Stu, can you find out how much money we are talking about with these corporate desertions? Because it's like 22, find out how much. How much are we talking about with everything that they're talking about, what this big problem is? Remember, we told you yesterday that they can't seem to find the records to be able to report $619 billion. So how much money are we talking about?
One estimate puts lost tax revenue at close to $20 billion.
$20 billion.
Over a decade.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
Over a
decade.
$2 billion a year.
Oh, my
It's
gosh.
$2 billion a year?
So you know that this is not about money.
No
This
way.
is not
No
about
way.
money. And by the way, if you look, we took in our stimulus package, we helped, I think it was Delphi, actually move their affiliation, help them buy a subsidiary in England.
We, meaning the Obama
The
administration.
Obama administration, our tax dollars went to get them out of their citizenship overseas. So they are now a British company, and we used our tax dollars to do it. So $22 billion, that's nothing. That's nothing.
And you just expanded it by $2 billion. It's only
Sorry, 20.
up to 20.
Okay. Even if comprehensive, okay, so here's what Jonathan Alter is saying now. And I want you to listen to this. Please find a way to get this to your friends who disagree with you. Don't make this about the president. Don't make this about anything but our values and our principles. If you start arguing about Republicans and Democrats, you will lose. We have to base our arguments in values and principles. We all want to live in a place where everybody wants to be here, wants to do things. We used to be a country say, look, if you don't like it, that's fine. Leave. Go someplace else. Find a better country. We are now forcing people to stay. So it's time, says Jonathan Alter, for red-blooded Americans to take matters into their own hands. Oh, my gosh. What a dangerous statement that is. My answer is to make every corporation sign something. Sign what? Well, if Republicans cared about this issue, which most don't, they would revive, listen to this, they would revive McCarthy-era loyalty oaths, where people were forced to swear that they weren't communists. Remembering those dark days, Democrats don't like oaths, or even pledges, which have proven enormously effective. Oh my gosh. He is making the case for a loyalty oath. But what he's saying is, yeah, we look at those dark days, but let's not forget that they were really, really effective. But his next line, because oaths and pledges are a little creepy, this effort needs something else. A little creepy, you think, Jonathan? A little creepy? Something that comes out of legal and business worlds, a contract, an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. That's common, he says, in America, where tens of thousands of senior managers and employers sign contracts promising to keep all sorts of information confidential. It's a condition of employment sometimes. But now it's time to change the D and expect the same from board of directors. A non-desertion agreement with a John Hancock of every board member and the CEO in the United States. So he wants everybody now to sign it. That is a loyalty oath. You can call it whatever you want, NDA or loyalty oath. It's a loyalty oath. And it's not creepy, it's wrong. It violates all of our principles. If boards thought for even a second about the long-term interests of their companies, they would summon their lawyers and sign. It's a protection against risks of resurgent nationalism that could strip them of many advantages. Indirect government subsidies, easy access to American markets that they currently enjoy. So in other words, we'll close the markets to you. You don't sign this, we close American markets to you. For those companies less able to act as Americans or recognize their real interests, stop talking about our interests and start talking about our values and principles. And recognize their real interests. There are two ways to make this work. The president should sign an executive order that says a company that wants to keep its federal contracts must sign a newfangled NDA. It's reasonable to expect most federal contractors in America to be American companies. Obama has already used the leverage to raise the minimum wage. This executive order would get the attention of major corporations, most of which would have federal contracts. Other companies with fewer federal contracts might be tempted to desert anyway. That's where the rest of us come in. Let's get the mob now. Under my scheme, anytime you use the word scheme, you should check yourself. Under my scheme, companies that sign a non-desertion agreement would embed a tiny American flag or a good housekeeping type seal in their corporate insignia for all to see, just as the companies during the Great Depression did that agreed with Franklin Roosevelt's recovery plan. They hung a huge emblem of a blue eagle in their windows with the legend, "We do our part." Yeah, that was under duress. You don't want to go back to that fascist style of governing. Businesses being forced to hang a blue eagle in their window was not the red, white, and blue. It's not the thing I go back and say, oh, those were good times. Nor do I look back at the McCarthy era and say, those blacklists and those loyalty oaths, those were good times. Let's just call them something else. Companies that fail to sign a non-desertion agreement would face the kind of public shaming that has gone out of fashion, but could come back, listen to this, but would come back with a vengeance. Boycotts, petitions, angry shareholder meetings, full of the language of patriotism. Oh my gosh. Okay, he goes on and says, fortunately, these un-American arguments are destined to fail with the American public as the issue ripens. That's because efforts to stop desertion aren't populist or socialist, but nationalist, a much more powerful force in American politics. Unbridled nationalism is a menace, and it leads to trade wars and all too often, real wars. But properly challenged, nationalism and patriotism are matters of the heart that cut to our deepest ideas of who we are. With viral online organizing, the idea of non-desertion agreements could spread quickly, and American corporations will learn if they want to enjoy this country's bounty, they'll have to be good citizens and pay taxes like the rest of us. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. America, run for your lives. This is really dangerous. You have people who are openly saying that they want redistribution of wealth. That is socialism. Now you have those same people saying that they want nationalism to play a role. That's National Socialism. Bad. Otherwise known as Nazis. Every time I have been called Joseph McCarthy. Every time Joseph McCarthy, he's gonna go nationalism. No, it's wrong. It's dangerous. The Patriot Act. How long have we been saying the Patriot Act was a huge mistake? And what do? They wrap it with patriot. Don't do this. Do not listen to these people. Do not go into loyalty oaths and call it what it is. It is a Berlin Wall. When a country is so mishandled and so misrun that they have to build walls, be them virtual or literal walls, to keep not people from coming in, but people from going out. That is a sign a country is about to go very dark. Warning. Jonathan Alter, you should be ashamed of yourself. Daily Beast, I don't even know what you are. But if this is the kind of policies that you believe are important, I know why I don't read you. This is dangerous thinking. You have a right to think it. You have a right to say it. And I prefer that you keep saying it out loud so we all know exactly who you are and what kind of country you believe in. It's not the country or the America that I understand.